generational curses keep you stuck because you start to repeat to yourself what happened to you when you were younger. For example, if you were a child and let's say you got a bad grade, right? And your parent attacked you because of your bad grade. That means to you, when you mess up or when you don't get the right result, the desired result, you will be brutalized or you will be attacked. So later on in life, when you don't get the right result, perhaps you'll become anxious. You'll start to get stressed out. It'll feel like it's a big deal, but you're not getting the same, there's not someone there that's brutalizing you or attacking you, but now you'll do it to yourself because that's what you heard growing up. So now it's like a tape recorder, like in They Clone Tyrone, and you're hearing your mother or your father or someone in your ear. Even if it's not conscious, that's what's happening because every other time you did this, this resulted. So as you get older, you're trained into submission because of the trauma that you experienced as a child. This can go way, way back to, let's say, even in slave times when someone was late, right? If a slave was late, I can only imagine what would happen to them. And so then it can go down to the next line where it's like, oh my gosh, if you're late, you can get knocked upside the head because that's what came down the line. So the things that you are experiencing that are negative and or even positive can be traced back to a time when you were a child. If you are being held back, it's likely because you are holding yourself back. And so then you have to think, why? Perhaps you're part of a family that shamed you every time you did something right or every time you used your brain, but they doted on you when you used your looks. But if you used your brain, then it was a problem. So then from then, when you grow up, you will have to overcome the fact that you had treacherous parents that belittled you or berated you for doing positive things. So when you grow up, and you start using your brain in positive ways, then you will start to have anxiety and you'll shut it down because you don't want to experience what happened last time. Our bodies and our minds are trained to keep us safe. So if you got punished for something, the natural reaction and response would be to do it a different way so you don't get that punishment. So then you get trained into that and you just continue to do that on the subconscious level because that's what you were trained to do as a child. So it is important to pay attention to what happened to you as a child. And people will say, oh, well, that happened as a child. You should be over it. Why? If you never dealt with it, how could you ever be over it? It can impact people in different ways, but if you haven't dealt with it, how can you get over it? And I'm certain that there are some things that are just so egregious that you probably can't get over it forever. There are some things that are probably so hurtful and so pain-filled that you might never get over it. And no one has the right to tell you that you should. Oh, you should get over that. Why? You don't have to get over anything. You can move on and perhaps you can move on. You can get to the point where it doesn't control you and doesn't rule everything about you and control how you live your life. Yes, you can do that. But that takes effort and work and time. And if you were around parents who did not have your best interest at heart, you have to recognize that. And even if they did have your best interest at heart, if they went about it the wrong way that was not conducive to you and your well-being, then you have to acknowledge that. And then from there, that's how you'll be able to grow, because you'll be able to recognize, oh, I see you, poison ivy. Okay, spray it, kill it, and get it out of your yard. You know, but if you don't know that it's the poison ivy that is the reason why you're breaking in hives, why you got weird BMs and all this kind of stuff, if you don't know, you might be putting your poison ivy in your salad and eating it. But you don't even realize at this point, you have been doing this your whole life. You have now trained yourself to poison yourself, because the energy that you're engaging in is the same energy that brought you down as a child. And now that's what you're experiencing on the daily basis by yourself, because your mama put the poison ivy in her salad, so you're going to put the poison ivy in her salad. And someone could even come to you and say, you know, that's poison ivy, right? You know you shouldn't be eating that. Well, I'm going to eat it because I've been eating this for years and I'm fine. Meanwhile, you got poison ivy all over the place, but you don't realize that you could be better. I don't think that. Until one day, you don't eat that poison ivy. Suddenly something happens and you realize, oh, wow, it was the poison ivy. And then you have a choice. That's when you have your power. That's what they say knowledge is power, because when you know that the poison ivy is poisonous, then you have a choice to decide, am I going to eat this again? Or am I going to leave this where it is? Am I going to eat this poison ivy knowing what it's going to do to me? Or am I going to put it back down because I don't want poison ivy on my insides? So it's important to recognize where you came from and who those beings were, who your family was, who raised you, so that you can know what needs to be cleaned out in your space. If you grew up around poverty and pain and this and that, you know that that's an area you can work on. And at the end of the day, you know, because then there's something, it doesn't mean that, oh, you're hopeless. No, you're capable. You are very capable. Now, is it going to take some effort? Perhaps. But Jim Rohn says the things that are easy are things that are simple for you to do. Now, mentally, because there's a difference between simple and easy. Remember that. It might be simple to work out every day, because it is simple to go to the gym. But it might not be easy per se for you in whatever space you're in to do that. It might be simple not to hold yourself back and self-sabotage, but it doesn't mean it's easy for you based on where you came from. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. Even if you're a turd waffle, there's nothing to be ashamed of. That's the first thing as well we have to get rid of. You've lived. Whatever you've done, whatever you've experienced, you lived. Period. And that's it. Have you probably most likely done some things you wouldn't do again? Certainly. And if you haven't, you haven't lived. Everybody who's lived has something they're like, oh Lord, I can't believe I did that. But you did it. And you're still here, and it's okay. And as Dr. Seuss says, those who care don't matter, and those who matter don't care. You can get around people within reason. Within reason. There are people who will love you anyway. And those who don't probably didn't love you regardless. Now, like I said, within reason. Like if you out here hurting children in certain ways, I can't rock with it. And people have their right to decide after they know what you've done if they want to be around you or not. And that's just part of reality. All right? But if you can determine where your pain and your stuff come from, most likely your parents or whoever raised you, whether it's your grandparents, cousins, the neighborhood, whatever, if you can acknowledge that those things can still impact you today, then you can cycle back and think, oh, okay, I remember I used to get in trouble if this is not a story for me. I'm just saying, this is not my reality. But you could say like, oh, I remember when I was younger, when I brought my A+ report card and my X, Y, and Z would hit me upside the head. So, so that's why now whenever I feel like I'm getting closer and closer, I get scared and I get anxiety. It's because of what happened when I was a child. So what you experienced when you were a child does matter, and it does make a huge difference. All right? So, yeah.